across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time, right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 electric hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000 or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, August the 17th. Here's what's coming up. Reform declare war on Britain's grotesque £350 billion a year welfare bill and announce savings of £50 billion by slashing disability benefits and axing all benefits for foreign nationals altogether. 0344499 1000. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed. There must be bigger savings that could be made on a welfare budget that is bankrupting the nation. But it's a start and more than we'll ever get from Labour, under whom this crippling expense just keeps on rising. 0344 499 1000. Do we need to get a grip on our welfare budget, which is grotesque and growing? £350 billion a year now. They say within 4 years it'll be more than 400 billion. So we need to get a grip on it, don't we? Are reform right? Do we need to make savings? And do we need to make them fast? 03444 499 1000. In other news, who's to blame for the sad death of troubled fantasist Jason Arday, the inveterate water mitty liar who became the ultimate victim of the chattering class's obsession with DEI. So determined were the alleged clever people at Cambridge University to boast about their youngest ever black professor, they turned a blind eye to his ludicrous tall tales, depicting himself as a modern miracle of our times. Now, at least one of the learned losers who are busy sacrificing Cambridge's reputation on the almighty altar of diversity has inevitably blamed the media for the phony prof's tragedy. Is it the media's fault? Shoot the messenger if you want, by all means. But surely the real villains of this heartbreak story are those who promoted a clearly vulnerable young man to a position way beyond his abilities, not to make him look good, but to make themselves look good. Surely they knew he wasn't up to the job. Surely they knew he wasn't qualified. Surely they knew the fragile insanity of his fantastical fibs. But they ploughed on and treated him like the second coming. And when his counterfeit castle came crashing down, poor Mr. Arday couldn't handle it. In a matter of days, he went from esteemed celebrity professor, man of letters, author, renowned genius, to global laughingstock. He lost everything. Devastating for his family and friends. But is Jason Arday's fate really the fault of the press or the social media warriors who ripped him to shreds? Do we need an investigation into the media? We don't really. It's not the media's fault. It's not the social warriors' fault. It's the idiots in academia, in charities, in the book publishing industry, in the BBC who wanted to believe him and didn't choose for 1 second to pause, to think about how vulnerable this ridiculous little liar was. They should have done, shouldn't they? 03444 99 1000. Very, very sad. But it's not the media's fault, folks. It really isn't. But if you disagree with me, let me know. What do you think? Whose fault is this? 03444 499 1000. Great sympathy, of course, to him and his loved ones. Whatever he did or didn't do, he didn't deserve to die. In other news, fury as Henry Novak's killer Vikram Digwa is allowed video calls to his jailed mother. Why not punish this pair of jailbirds by not letting them talk? Just a thought. She, of course, went to prison for hiding the murder weapon her son used to kill poor Henry Novak before lying and saying that Henry subjected him to a racist assault, which he didn't. She hid the murder weapon and she's gone to jail too. Why should these two be allowed to talk? Why do they get to have that privilege, to enjoy that privilege? Why don't we punish them by not letting them talk? Just a thought. 03499 0344 499 1000. Also on today's action-packed show, Trigger Happy Andy Burnham is slammed for pressing the emergency warning button just to tell us not to light barbecues during wildfire season. Gee, thanks, Mother Government. What would we do without you? Was Friday night's cacophony of foam buzzing really necessary? Or was it the turbocharged nanny state on steroids? Just leave us alone, eh? 03444 499 1000. Plus, the scandal of the Chinese-made mega dinghies, which are transported to mainland Europe via British ports, especially Felixstowe. So to get to mainland Europe, they first come to Britain. Then they go to mainland Europe. Then the migrants climb back in and they come back to Britain. Isn't that special? 03444 499 1000. And finally, all the latest royal news with Kinsey Schofield, including Harry's plans to visit Britain every few months, whether we like it or not. Isn't that special? 03444 499 1000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday afternoon together. Let's go over to my first guest. He is the Director at Popular Conservatism, Mark Littlewood. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Kev. Good to be with you again.
Always a pleasure. Let's hear Robert Jenrick, Reform's Treasury spokesman, as it were, this morning, giving a speech about how Reform intend to save £50 billion a year on our grotesque £350 billion a year welfare bill. Here he goes. Take it away, Mr. Jenrick.
Let me speak very plainly. If people who are capable of work refuse, then they'll get nothing. That's fair. How can it be that one family on a street with working parents strive, work hard, only to fund the lifestyle of another who chooses not to bother to work at all, who isn't even really looking for a job? This isn't just an aberration, a small number of very isolated cases to be dismissed as a rounding error. It's an epidemic that's been allowed to take hold across our country and has now spread into a full-blown national crisis. My message today, for those taking everyone else for mugs, under a Reform government, it's going to stop.
Well, I hope he's right. If Reform get the opportunity, then they are clearly intent on doing what this government should do, what the Tories should have done, get a grip on our absolutely obscene welfare budget, which currently stands at £350 billion a year. And because Labour have done nothing to curtail that expenditure, within 4 years it is confidently expected to get up to about £410 billion a year and rising. So Reform are right. And they say they can save £50 billion a year at a stroke by stopping giving benefits to foreign nationals altogether. I think that sounds like a sensible plan. And also by cutting back on disability benefits. In other words, perhaps being slightly less enthusiastic about signing off school kids from work for life because they've got anxiety or they're suffering from depression, that kind of nonsense. So they say they can save £50 billion a year right off the bat with that. I would say, though, generally, whilst I applaud the instinct, I applaud Reform's thoughts here, I'm a bit disappointed. I think we could save more than just £50 billion because £300 billion a year is still grotesque and obscene. We should cut back far more than just 50 billion, don't you think?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Kev. And let's put this in some sort of context. If we were to look at today's welfare bill, I think you're right that 350 billion is likely to be spent this year. But in the last year, we spent 334 billion, I think it was. That's more than the total income tax receipts that were paid into the government. Absolutely extraordinary numbers. If you were to look back at the year 2000, it's absolutely extraordinary. The welfare bill in real terms, I'm not doing any cheating with inflation here, has gone up £122 billion since the start of the millennium. So Robert Jenrick's plan, whilst I welcome it, and 50 billion plus is a big sum of money, doesn't even take us halfway back to where we were in welfare spending in the year 2000, just to give you an idea of how much it has ludicrously ballooned. So I hope this is a first step from reform, not the final tally, because I'm with you, we need to cut back an awful lot more. In fact, I would go so far as to say that we need to redesign the welfare system from scratch. You can't do that overnight. People do have expectations. You need to give people fair warning to turn their life around. But I think the entire system is now so bloated, it's ludicrous. I mean, in fact, Kev, if you were to look at the total welfare bill, and let's imagine, what's a fair number? Let's say, for sake of argument, 10% of the population need welfare support, okay? And that over the course of their lifetimes, the other 90% could be expected to stand on their own 2 feet. Sure, they'll go through troubled periods, but they could generally then dip into their savings. Maybe it's 10% of the population who need to be supported by the rest of us. Well, for the total welfare bill that we've got now, we could give each person in that 10% cohort, the poorest 10%, the most needy 10%, the most deserving 10%, however you want to categorise it, we could give each of them in cash every year 50 grand, the best part of 50 grand. That is the scale of the welfare bill. And you would think with that amount of money being spent, no one should be complaining about poverty in the UK, right? With those sort of resources at your disposal, poverty should have been utterly eviscerated from Britain. And yet we're still told that there's poverty all over the place, vast amounts of children in poverty and all the rest of it. Well, if 300 billion, 350 billion can't solve that, more money won't be able to solve it, and I think we can spend an awful lot less. This is a gigantic piece of government expenditure. Easily the biggest department in terms of spending is the Department of Welfare and Pensions, and it has to be said, to a remarkable lack of effect, indeed often with major downsides of discouraging people from actually entering the workforce. So 2.5 cheers for Robert Jenrick, I'd say. This is a good start. At least he is moving quite dramatically in the right direction, but quite a lot further to go.
And good for reform, for at least reminding the government that they should do something about the welfare bill, the grotesque welfare bill. But the problem is, isn't it, Mark, that we know that this Labour government, with their worldview, they still, I think, look at all welfare claimers as waifs and strays who need mother government's help. That is a rather obscene mischaracterisation of the truth. They're not going to cut this welfare bill at all. So we've got two huge economic problems in this country that, mark my words, are going to drown this country, are going to send us into bankruptcy, and we have a government that aren't going to do anything about it. One, of course, is the grotesque national debt, which has now soared above £3 trillion, that you and I discussed the other day, Mark, that is now costing nearly £3,500 per second just to service, not to pay back, but just to service the interest on it. £3,500 every single second. So that is the concrete boots of economics. That'll drag you down. Add to that a welfare bill of £350 billion a year and rising. And you got a perfect storm. Those two factors, we have a government that quite clearly are not going to do anything about welfare spending. They seem to want to stick their fingers in their ears and act as if the £3 trillion national debt isn't happening. Those two factors, a government that's lackadaisical about those two factors, they're going to bring us down.
Yeah. Yes, you're right, Kev. And I increasingly think this is now not a question of real political philosophy or ideology. It's a straightforward question of maths. This is just simply unsustainable. Yeah, I mean, you can want for an even bigger welfare system, I guess, if you're on the left of the spectrum, but there is no way to pay for it. This is now a very practical problem, not merely one between who deserves what. This can't be afforded. And many of the things blighting Britain at the moment, Kev, are peas of the same pod. We are in this ridiculous level of national debt because we have squandered money and spent money we have not had for the past 25 years or more. No government has balanced the books in a single year since 2001. Quarter of a century of massive overspending. Some parts of that timeline are called the period of austerity. Well, I dread to think what largesse would look like. That's a period of austerity. So we have dug this hole for ourselves in no small part because of ludicrous welfare spending. The immigration problem further adds to that. That is part of the welfare issue as well. There are other elements to it about cultural cohesion and crime, but it is adding to the issue and is not being tackled. And whoever forms the next government, whether Labour are re-elected, whether Reform win, whether the Conservatives win, whether there's some form of coalition, we are going to inherit basically a basket case of a country. Absolutely massive radical surgery is going to be needed. And I think the best way to do that is I have great faith in the British people. If the problems are spelt out to them, they get it. They get it. And rather than just talking about the problems of fecklessness and work shyness and the waste of human potential, all of which matter enormously amongst our young people in Britain, we also have to clearly spell out to the British people that this situation is unsustainable. We are going to hell in a handcart fast, and we need to execute a very dramatic handbrake turn. And I think if that's spelled out by political leaders, whether it's Robert Jenrick or somebody else, the British people will get it and vote for it. And this sort of question of bean counting, well, exactly who gets what, and oh, we better not say that because some voters at a marginal seat might be a bit irritated if they no longer get their motor scooter. I'm afraid that's got to be put to one side. The position is so grave that it needs to be spelt out with absolute clarity. We need to be crystal clear about it. And I'm very confident that actually the British people are several steps ahead of our politicians here.
Yeah, I hope the government get with the programme because these are very, very dangerous times, and let's hope that the Prime Minister isn't just thinking about what he orders at Greg's for breakfast and what his favourite Smith songs is and bringing bus fares down, because there are far more important issues to get to grips with. And I just worry. I think he's barely noticed the national debt problem. I don't think he's particularly economically literate, and therein lies our problems.
Yeah.
You're going to stay with us across the break, Mark. When we come back, we'll have a little chat about poor Jason Arday, the phony professor who I'm afraid sadly died on Friday, was found dead at his home in Battersea in South London. I think we all know why. It's a very, very sad story. People are thrashing around trying to blame each other right now, but I do think that those in Cambridge University and those left-wingers who want to blame what they call the right-wing media for allegedly hounding poor Jason to his grave, no. The media just reported the story. What we have to ask ourselves is, how did that story happen? How was it allowed to happen? Why did the professors, why did the learned losers at Cambridge University allow this guy to tell his fantastical lies? They knew he wasn't telling the truth. They just wanted him to be believed so they could say, oh, look, we've got the youngest black professor in Cambridge's history, aren't we wonderful? Well, Jason Arday, folks, was a tragic victim of the obsession with DEI. So obsessed with diversity were the powers that be at Cambridge University. They were determined to promote this poor, vulnerable young fantasist to a position way beyond his abilities that he couldn't handle. And when he was exposed for the fraud he was, it took a terrible toll on him. You can't blame the messenger. All the press did was report the story. The media reported the story. Who created the story? The DEI-obsessed idiots at Cambridge University. Jason Arday was a victim of their selfish virtue signalling. That wasn't about being good to Jason, making him a professor. It was about making themselves look good. Aren't we wonderful? We've appointed the youngest ever black professor. Look at us, us, us. Aren't we wonderful? Never once did they think about him. And we know where it led. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Get to the calls now, and Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin. Hey. Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to
disagree with me.
Yeah. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I know we're talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'll be less accidents. More people.
More people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with the Director of Popular Conservatism, Mark Littlewood. Mark, let's talk about Jason Arday. I'm sure that, like me, when I saw that story on Friday night, I was absolutely shocked and stunned. And I think, like a lot of people in the media, I probably thought, you know, what did I say about this guy? What did I report? Did I, you know, did I unnecessarily go over the top making jokes about him? And I got to say, it's not often that I can say this, but my conscience is clear. I said every single time, this is not a story about Jason Arday. He is quite clearly a vulnerable young man, an unstable young man who has made up the most ridiculous lies. Quite clearly, this guy needs help. What this story is about the esteemed Cambridge academics that decided they wanted to believe his ludicrous lies because they wanted to be able to say, we've got the youngest black professor, 39 years old. Well, it turns out he really is a victim of the DEI monster. They were so obsessed with diversity, they overlooked his lack of qualifications, his inability to do this job, his obvious vulnerability, and they just thrust him into this position, and the rest is tragic history. Never again must they do this. They must interrogate people properly to see whether or not they're up to these jobs. Jason Arday clearly wasn't. But what I don't appreciate, we got Lord Woolley, he's the head of Homerton College at Cambridge, so the academics are starting to line up. He's saying we need an investigation into the media onslaught, the vicious media onslaught. No, Lord Woolley, we need an investigation into why your university hoisted this guy up to a position he could not handle. Why you chose as a university to carry on believing his obvious lies. They didn't really believe in Mark, they just chose to theatrically believe him because it suited their purposes, so they could say, look at us, aren't we wonderful? We've got this young black genius who's our professor. So you cannot blame the media for reporting what was a story of a massive failing by a very important British institution, one of the great universities of the world. And you cannot blame the media for reporting the fantastical details of the absurd lies this guy told. Yes, it humiliated him, but what are we going to do? It's not our fault, it's their fault, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Kev, you're so right. I was also reflecting on what I said about him when I heard of his passing. I mean, this is a story that started out as farcical, almost comical, with the sort of sidebar that it, brought into question the reputation of one of our great universities, one of the greatest universities in the world, that has suddenly turned very, very dark and tragic. And it is, to be honest with you, Kev, it's a little bit like the story that we were discussing in some ways before the break. This is another example of willful blindness on the part of the elite of Britain. There's willful blindness with regard to the desperate nature of our economic position. There was willful blindness in Cambridge about Jason Arday. And look, what infuriates me here is you didn't need to be some incredible forensic detective to work out that this man's CV was a tissue of lies. Even a cursory investigation would have established that absolutely clearly. They didn't even bother to do that. It didn't require a great deal to prove that he was a fraudster. He was a fraudster. He had made up huge and deeply improbable, I mean, ludicrously improbable stories about his life.
That's why he got humiliated, Mark, because the stories were so fantastical. They were funny, I ran 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg.
Ludicrous.
I was in a programme that was filmed something like 30 years before I was born, etc., etc. His lies were laughable. They were funny.
Correct.
I did actually try very hard not to laugh at him, but I laughed at who we should have laughed at, who we should still, in a way, despite the tragic circumstances, laugh contemptuously at. That is, the academics who chose to appoint this guy to a position he was not qualified. As far as we can work out, he had 3 GCSEs and some sort of PE qualification. How he got to be a Cambridge professor on 100 grand a year is, a scandal.
Remarkable. Yes, it is an absolute scandal. And Cambridge also closed their ears and their eyes to complaints that were coming in, three or more years ago, from students who were saying that he wasn't doing his job well, that he, wasn't clearly up to it, even from the students' point of view, from external reports, from some internal academics. All of that was turned a blind eye to. And here's the question, Kev, what are the media to do? Right? Because there is a racial element to this story. I want to be very clear what I mean here. Not a racist element, but a racial element, because the supposition was, and I think has now been proven to be 100% correct, that this man got this job not on the grounds of his talents, which he had lied about, or his achievements, which were fabricated, but because of the colour of his skin. That's the racial element to the story. What are the media to do? Are they supposed to turn a blind eye as well? Should we have encouraged this man to be appointed, I don't know, as the UN Secretary General, or to be awarded a Nobel Prize to perpetuate the fantasy? And it's really important to underscore, Kev, this was no ordinary academic. This guy was a poster boy, massive high public profile, did some of the top TV and radio shows in the country. Most academics, no one would ever have heard of. They're hardly ever on television. This guy was put in the public spotlight, embraced that, was encouraged by Cambridge to do all of that. It's perfectly reasonable for the media to ask questions. The proof here is this, isn't it? You've got to nip in the bud a lie very early, because if you run with it, if you cover it up, if you turn your attention, if you look away, these are the outcomes you get. This is the sad, tragic conclusion we get. This could and should have been nipped in the bud pre the interview stage, let alone after his appointment. It should have become absolutely transparent that something had gone wholly wrong. And it wasn't just an error by an interview panel, it was the perpetuation of a myth and a lie for years. And this is the tragedy it has caused. Yeah. It's been caused by Cambridge University, not by the media and journalists doing their job, which is to ask difficult questions and to find the truth. And although this has ended tragically, journalists and the media must not take one step away from that being the case. Asking awkward questions is the absolute centrepiece of a free press.
To blame the press is literally shooting the messenger. Nonsense. But Cambridge University has today defended its mental health support for Jason Arday. They said they carried on offering mental health support even after he resigned as a professor under this intense scrutiny. It wasn't particularly good help then, was it? Because we know where it ended. So perhaps they might have not wanted to make that announcement. But also tonight, Mark, there will be a vigil organised by the Stand Up to Racism group for Jason Arday. That will be on the steps of the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square at 6 p.m. tonight. The group's co-convener, Wayman Bennett, said in a statement that Arday's death was, quote, the result of a racist witch hunt. For more than a week, the right-wing press, politicians and the far right have hounded Jason with the most vicious racism. They are spreading the far-right lie that black people are only appointed because of the colour of their skin rather than our ability. No, no, no. It's just so wrong, that. What the disappointing travesty of the appointment of Jason Arday as a professor at Cambridge was he didn't deserve that. He didn't have the qualifications, he didn't have the intellect, but they picked on him because he was black. So they invented the skin colour issue, and this was not a racist witch hunt. He was put into a position where his race became the issue because the Cambridge professors wanted to signal their virtue about how unracist they were appointing this brilliant young black professor. To call it a racist witch hunt by the right-wing racist press is why we've got so many problems in this country, because you have grifters like this idiot who are desperate to mischaracterise a situation.
Yeah. But Kev, it's worse than that. This might sound like a pedantic point, but it's an important one, I think. A witch hunt is based on a falsehood. You hunt witches don't exist. Witch hunts are, you know, hounding innocent people who have done nothing wrong on the grounds that they are supposedly a witch. The whole point of the witch hunt thing is you're hounding a totally innocent person. You are not seeking to get to the truth. You are seeking to berate them for entirely fictitious and confected reasons. Well, that wasn't the case with Arday, was it? The questions being asked were not a witch hunt. A witch hunt is when you're chasing a falsehood. This was people chasing the truth. Had he plagiarised his PhD? How was he teaching at Cambridge University? Those are not witch hunt questions. Those are just questions. They would be witch hunt questions if people were gunning for him, despite the fact that his CV stacked up. The whole question was about the facts and about the truth. A witch hunt is berating somebody based on lies. So Wayman Bennett there is just simply misusing the English language and genuinely believes in Arday's claims.
It's race grifting. That's what this was all the way along the line. It's not the press, it's not the right-wing media, they're not being racist, it isn't a witch hunt. As you say, Mark, this is a true story. Who's to blame for this? The people who venerated him, who sacrificed him on the almighty altar of DEI, of diversity. That's what he's a victim of, the obsession with diversity. It's as simple as that. Mark, fantastic to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. That's the brilliant Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism. Let me know what you think about Jason Arday. As I say, I always pointed out, I said, this guy, it's not about him. He's got problems. I was always surprised that not more was made of his clear vulnerability. You know, there was clearly something toweringly wrong with this guy. The mad claims he was making about himself. Absolutely insane, hilariously insane. Nobody seemed to jump on that much. They kept sort of taking the mickey out of him. We should have been taking the mickey out of the idiots who chose to believe him. But let me know what you think. 03444991000. Who is to blame for the death of Jason Arday? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to talk about the early prison release scheme, and more to the point, we're going to talk about Henry Novak's evil killer, Vikram Digwar, the Sikh knife maniac, is going to be allowed to call his mother on video calls, son to mum. Isn't that nice? She's in jail for hiding the murder weapon. So she's doing 3 years. He's doing best part, you know, he's got to do at least 21, 22 years, I think. He's doing a life sentence, but they've been allowed to call each other. Well, why don't we just sort of say, no, you can't call your mother? And to the mother, you can't call your son either, because you're in prison. You're being punished. You know, that's what we're taking away from you. Your right to spend time with your loved ones. Your right to talk to your loved ones. That's what punishment is all about. Why are we pandering to these scumbags like this? The killer of Henry Novak, the lying toe rag killer of Henry Novak and his awful mother who hid the murder weapon. Why are we pandering to them? Why are we giving them special privileges? It's all wrong, isn't it? We'll talk about that next. 03444991000. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, as I was saying before the break, Henry Novak's killer, Vikram Digwar, is being allowed to call his mum, Kiran Kaur. She's 53 years old. She's doing 3 years for hiding the murder weapon. Great family, the Digwars. And Henry Novak, of course, is doing life for killing poor Vikram Digger was doing live for killing poor Henry Novak and then pretending Henry Novak subjected him to racist abuse, which was a total lie. So the question is why are they getting this special privilege? Zoom calls to each other. I mean, it's not a holiday camp. Let's talk to former police officer Norman Brennan. Welcome, Norman.
Yeah, good afternoon, Kevin.
What's your feeling about this? I mean, Vikram Digwa and his mother, Kiran Kaur, they've only been in jail for a couple of months, probably less than that, a month and a half or so. It's a bit early to be getting these kind of privileges. Shouldn't they be punished? Why are they being allowed these regular Zoom calls to each other, mum to son? Isn't that touching? Isn't that emotional? But wouldn't it be a better idea in your view, it certainly would be in my view, that what we say to them is, you want to talk to your mum? Then don't murder people. But given that you have murdered someone, you can't talk to your mum. That's part of your punishment. Same deal for her. If you don't hide murder weapons, then maybe you can get to talk to your son, but you did, so you can't. But no, Norman, we've allowed these two to have regular Zoom calls to each other. Where's the punishment in that?
Well, I'll come on to that in just a second, Kevin. I'll address what you said earlier on in the programme, is what is the purpose of imprisonment? The purpose of imprisonment is to send those to prison that commit serious or persistent crime to such a degree that society need protecting. So the purpose of prison is to punish the offender, to deter other offenders, and also that offender upon release, and to reassure the public, a very important point, and victims of crime. And lastly, it's rehabilitation. That is the line of why people are sent to prison. And when people say we got too many people in prison, Kevin, if a magistrate or judge deems somebody so dangerous, having committed such a serious crime, or such a persistent offender, i.e. they've exhausted all the alternatives to imprisonment, from caution right up to suspended sentence, we haven't got too many people in prison, we've got the right people in prison. Now, coming on to the question you asked, when you're sent to prison, there are certain privileges that you should lose, and rightly so, and that is your freedom to walk the streets, and also other freedoms. It should be for voting, and also you should be ensured that you take on rehabilitative programs. Now,
yeah, but let's cut to the chase. Should these two be allowed to talk to each other? Should he be allowed to talk to his mum? Should his mum be allowed to talk to her son? Both of whom are in jail. What they shouldn't be, should they?
I was just coming on to that point. Yeah. A phone call, you're entitled to phone home, but this particular individual, Digbar, is not phoning home. He's phoning another prison. He's phoning another prison where his mother hid a murder weapon. Now, that is a privilege that should absolutely be taken away. It shouldn't be in effect. So if we actually look at the overhaul, Kevin, here of the criminal justice system and these releases to society of those that commit these types of crime, it's akin to a farmer releasing a pack of wolves or foxes into a field full of sheep. We know there's going to be utter madness and mayhem and murder and killings. That's exactly what's happening. So getting back to this individual, he will be serving, as I understand it, probably his entire life in prison.
He's got to do 21 years minimum. 21 years. So he won't, will he? He'll be out by his mid-40s.
Well, no, you're right. You won't serve life in prison. But when you get done for murder, you serve the entire sentence. If you're given 21 years or 25 years, there's no
He'll do 21 years, but that means he'll be 44 when he comes out. So it's not exactly his entire life, is it?
Well, the whole criminal justice system is in utter chaos. Kevin, tomorrow you'll be talking about another crime. You'll be talking about another victim that has been murdered by a migrant, or a woman that's been raped by a migrant, or somebody that's been shot dead. or youths carrying knives. We have a criminal justice system in utter chaos. It's not fit for purpose. And we discuss this sort of thing every day of the week, and nothing ever changes. We're talking now about a killer being allowed to have a phone call with his mother that hid the murder weapon.
Yeah, why don't we just say no? Why don't we just say no to these people? Why don't we say no? You can't. This is not just phone calls. These are Zoom calls, video calls. So special, regular video calls between mother and son. I think we should have turned around to them and said, no, you see, this is the sort of privilege, talking to your mum, that you lose when you commit murder and you get sent to prison. You can't talk to your mum. Get used to it. And yet, what do? Yeah, OK, you can. It's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, why aren't we saying no to paedophiles being released back into society at the 50% point?
Well, we don't. Well, that's if we're lucky. We basically have a policy not to put first-time paedophile offenders into prison at all. Ask Hugh Edwards.
Well, I'll tell you what sort of alert the government should put out. Lock your bloody doors. Yeah. Lock your windows. Put bars on your windows. Because I'll be quite honest with you, Kevin, there's many victims of rape and very serious crimes that these offenders have committed that the victims may just as well be back in prison. And talking about domestic violence, for example, many of those are so obsessed with their ex-partner or current partner, as it is, that these individuals will go back. And I think the prison service and also the head of the probation service said, I think that there will be a murder. Well, if that's what the head of probation and the head of the prison service say, why the bloody hell are we releasing 5,000 or 10,000 people back onto the streets? The primary role of the government, any government, is to keep our borders safe, our streets safe, and our victim society safe. And many of those are vulnerable women that have been raped and children that have been indecently assaulted. Yet we're letting the foxes and the wolves into the fields.
Yeah, I mean, but I think more to the point, we just need to not let these people talk to each other. I don't know why we're doing it. It just smacks of a really soft, soppy justice system. It really does. Norman, good to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Norman Brennan, the former police officer. What do you think? I mean, they shouldn't be... Look, getting to call your loved ones in prison is like a privilege. You do it when you become a very well-behaved, long-serving prisoner. These two have barely been behind bars a few weeks, and already they're being allowed regular video calls, Zoom calls to each other. Why? Why? Why don't we turn around to them and say, look, this is the nature of punishment. Just like you can't go for a walk in the park now because we've locked you up, you can't talk to your mother, and your mother can't talk to you. You are being punished. Why are we not doing that? Why are we saying, well, yes, all right, you can have your calls? Why are we doing that? 03444991000. Next up, we're going to talk about government alerts. It's Friday night, 7 p.m. We were just finishing drive time. All our phones start going off. It was a cacophony of phone alerts all Friday night. What for? So the government could tell us not to light barbecues in case they cause wildfires. Is that really what this government deems an emergency, to tell us not to light barbecues on wildfire sites? I think we probably knew that. What is wrong with this lot? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Let's get to the calls now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin. Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to...
Disagree with me.
Yeah. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I know we're talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'd be less accidents. More people...
Yeah, more people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Friday's big alarm, the 999 emergency buzz we all got hurtling down our phones about 7 o'clock on Friday night. We'd literally just finished drive time, so that finished at 7. And as I was leaving the studio, suddenly it was, I go, what's this? So then you could hear it all over the place. Then I go down to London Bridge Station. All I could hear was phones going off. And you think, oh, it must be a bad emergency. No, it's Mother Government, the nanny state, telling us don't light barbecues on wildfire sites. Oh, I see. So it's a bad idea to have a fire in the middle of very dry grass and wild shrubland. I see. Thank you very much, Mother Government. How ridiculous. Let's talk to, from the, he's the head of lifestyle economics at the IEA, Christopher Snowden. Welcome, Chris. Well, do you agree with me? That was a rather extreme example of nanny state overreach on Friday night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only surprising thing is it's taken nearly a year since doing the test to start using it. You know, the government's got a new toy here. It was always going to use it excessively, and it found its excuse on Friday. I don't think the wildfires in Britain, as bad as they've obviously been in some areas, justify sending a message that overrides the mute function on every phone. I think there are 87 million phones in the country. It's going to undermine faith in the system. People like me have now turned off the alerts because we don't want to feel that the government is breathing down our neck. 7 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, sat out in the garden I was, and suddenly this screeching noise comes around to tell me not to light a barbecue, which I wasn't going to do anyway. I don't think there's... I don't think it's very likely that this has done any good. I think that a lot of these fires are being started deliberately. I think, if anything, getting a message like this might give some little scamps the idea of lighting fires. I gather there's been some people have been in near misses in their cars. There's concern about domestic abuse victims who have secret phones. It's done a lot more harm than good, I suspect. We don't need it. It's overreach. It's a slippery slope in action. Before you know it, they'll be telling us to eat our greens and to turn the radiators on in winter and all the other kind of patronising stuff we get from government agencies.
See, I mean, I agree with every word you said there. I would not have sent that message at all. I think the government should be very careful about what it deems to be an important enough emergency before they press the button to alarm every citizen in the country. They need to be careful about the criteria for pressing that button. And what we got on Friday night, I mean, I still would have objected, but if it had said, look, the whole country's a tinderbox, be careful, wildfires, you know, move like lightning and be careful, just watch out there, folks, I suppose I'd have just about accepted it. But it wasn't that. It was a lower order of warning than that. It was using this very important alarm system, which will be used when they know a nuclear bomb's about to strike Britain, to tell us don't light a barbecue because that might set off wildfires. That's not an emergency. That's just telling us the bleeding obvious. I just think it's a socialist government. They just love the idea of reminding us they're in charge. Mother government's here to help, to tell you not to light fires, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we're the government. We'll help you through all this. It's just socialist nanny statism. And I think the reaction around the country was pretty appalled. People didn't like it at all. Old people were alarmed by it. Kids were alarmed by it. There were reports of cars like screaming across motorways, not knowing what the hell was going on. I think it was very irresponsible the way they did it without warning as well.
Well, they gave us 15 minutes warning, but nobody had time to really see that. And if there is an emergency, you wouldn't expect to get a warning. The fact that they had any time to give us a warning suggests that this was not an imminent emergency, and indeed it wasn't. I think possibly that you could make a case for people in certain local areas could have been sent the message. But the thing here was you got Andy Burnham on Friday. He was up in Stourbridge looking at some of these burnt out houses, and clearly the wildfires have been a serious problem in places like that. And then he gets the fire brigade saying, can you use your national alert system to tell everybody in the country to be more careful? And he goes along with it. This is a whim. This isn't something that's been carefully thought out by Cobra. This is just the Prime Minister being lent on by someone. And it's very easy to see the Prime Minister being lent on by some other special interest group at any moment, telling us we need to do such and such to deal with whatever crisis the government's obsessed with. Look, the government thinks everything's a crisis. It thinks there's a cost of living crisis, a climate crisis, a big crisis. And, the number of messages, well-meaning messages it could be sending out to us is almost endless. And I suspect it will be fairly endless, which is why I've turned off the alerts myself.
Yeah, it's been counterproductive because, Jacob Rees-Mogg did a special video about how to disarm your phone, how to disconnect the emergency alert facility. I found it on mine. I left it on, but I'm toying with switching it off as well. But the counterproductive nature of what the government did on Friday, millions of people were appalled by the unimportant nature of this warning and said, well, if that's what they're going to blast down my phone with big buzzing warnings, I'm not interested, and they've turned it off. So millions of people have now turned off the government warning mechanism.
Yeah, rightly so. I think everybody should. Look, I've been racking my brains trying to think of a warning that would be justified. And even the obvious things like an asteroid is about to hit London, or Putin's dropped the big one. I'm not even sure I want to know that. Maybe I'd like to live my last few minutes in blissful ignorance.
Yes.
If people want to be up to date with the news, they can get notifications from the BBC or Sky or what have you. They can spend all their time on Twitter like I do. But I just don't think this is actually useful in any way. It's only going to lead to unintended consequences. I recommend everybody just dismantle.
It's very sort of Soviet North Korean. Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more, Chris. Good to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Chris Snowden, Head of Lifestyle Economics at the IEA. Next up, very pleased to say that after the news, we'll be joined by Reform UK's chairman, Lee Anderson, to go through some of the big stories of the day. So you don't want to miss.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we need to discuss those mega dinghies, you know, like that one that carried 230 illegal migrants across the Channel last week. Well, those mega dinghies are being made in China, like everything else, I guess. And to get to mainland Europe, they're transported or ferried or cargo shipped or whatever you call it, via Britain. So they come to... We know Felixstowe quite often used. So they come to Felixstowe and then they're shipped on to mainland Europe, Rotterdam, Frankfurt, places like that, and then on to Calais. So on their route from China to be used to ferry illegal migrants across the Channel unlawfully, that route includes a stop-off in Britain and then on to mainland Europe and then back to Britain. So we'll talk about that absurdity later. But first, really pleased to say that for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be joined by Reform UK's party chairman and the MP for Ashfield, the one and only Lee Anderson MP. Welcome, Lee.
Hello there, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show. Well, first of all, good news from Reform UK this morning. Well, let's remind ourselves of what Robert Jenrick had to say when he made a speech about Reform's plans to cut our grotesque £350 billion a year welfare bill. This is Robert Jenrick speaking earlier.
Let me speak very plainly. If people who are capable of work refuse, then they'll get nothing. That's fair. How can it be that one family on a street with working parents strive, work hard, only to fund the lifestyle of another who chooses not to bother to work at all, who isn't even really looking for a job? This isn't just an aberration, a small number of very isolated cases to be dismissed as a rounding error. It's an epidemic that's been allowed to take hold across our country and has now spread into a full-blown national crisis. My message today, for those taking everyone else for mugs, under a Reform government, it's going to stop.
Yeah, Lee, basically we are paying at least 1.3 million foreigners pretty much full benefits. How did we get to a situation in this country that we just decided to bestow upon foreigners who arrive in this country, quite often illegally, full welfare rights? We pay them full benefits. Well, how did this ever happen?
Yeah, we're quite right, Kevin. We've been a soft touch for years. It's been weak, spineless politicians over in that place in Westminster where I work who have allowed this to happen. And both mainstream parties have been as bad in the uncontrolled migration. We are a soft touch. We know it benefits Britain. But also, just say this, 1.2 million, you just quoted there, that's about right. How many other countries in the world would have 1.2 million people in that country claiming benefits? How many Britons are abroad claiming benefits in one country? It's nowhere near that figure. It's staggering. And the policy that Rob and Richard introduced there is all about fairness. Fairness to the hard-working British taxpayer gets up in the morning and goes and does a shift and does that 5, 6, 7 days a week to put food on the table, to pay the mortgage, that struggle along to do the right thing by their family and their country. Yet we see people from other countries coming into our country, freeloading, living a life on benefits once they've got ILR, no intention of contributing at all towards our society. They are a drain on our society, and we cannot afford it. This country is £3 trillion in debt, and we're paying lazy, bone-idle foreigners to sit on their backsides in this country and do nothing. And it's got to stop, and we are the only party that will put a stop to it.
I want to talk to you in a little while, Lee, about your recent trip over to northern France. I thought that was very interesting. But before we get to that, the other sort of raft of what Robert Jenrick was saying in terms of easy, early, immediate savings to be made would be to crack down on the amount of benefits and welfare we're handing out for disability reasons, in terms of too many young people, I think, you know, being allowed not to work for life because they've got anxiety issues or mental health issues, or they're depressed. So you would crack down on the ease with which we hand out benefits to people who just say they've got mental health issues. You'd get to grips with that, yeah?
We need to get to grips with it. You know, everybody suffers from a little bit, Kevin, of mental health problems, anxiety problems. People worry, people lay awake at night. I mean, I know people that lie awake at night worried about how they're going to pay their mortgage or their rent, or will they have a job at the end of the month. That's people under real pressure. They don't just drop off sick and go and claim a benefit. They carry on and they soldier through it. And that's what we've always done in this country. But over the past 10 years or so, the amount of PIP claims, or DLA as it was, has doubled in this country. We've not suddenly become sick overnight. What people are seeing is there's an easier way. There's an easier way to make a living in this country, and that's a life on benefits. And, you know, I live in a relatively poorer constituency where the average wage is about £30,000 a year. I know, I've dealt with in the past claimants, benefit claimants, that's getting £40,000 and £50,000 a year net. You know, most of my constituents can dream of that sort of income coming into their household. It's unfair. It has to stop. And I think one of the best remedies for people who's got mild depression or a mild anxiety is a good day's work.
Couldn't agree more. Do you think that this government is in a state of delusion about our welfare problems? I think we've got two massive problems that this Prime Minister, this government, I think deliberately try not to confront. They try to avoid it. And those two problems are the more than £3 trillion national debt, which costs us nearly £3,500 every second to service. They don't like to talk about that. And the other concrete boots around our ankles economically is the welfare budget, the massive, grotesque £350 billion a year welfare budget, which they think will, within 4 years, be up to around about 410 billion. So it keeps going up and up and up. So it's great to hear Reform UK coming up with proposals to do something about this hideous welfare bill that we got at the moment. But the problem is we've still got 3 years of Labour who clearly aren't going to do anything about it. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And that is very worrying economically, isn't it?
It is worrying, Kevin. I mean, the Labour Party was built up on, you know, being a party for the workers, looking after working people, protecting their rights, making sure that they had safe community living, that they had good employment rights. You know, they were heavily unionised back in the day in big industries, and the Labour Party had played a decent role in that. But now they're not the party of the workers; they're just the party of the shirkers. And you know, they make a good living. They make a good living out of keeping people poor in this country. There's nothing big and clever about living a life on benefits. We are literally giving people's lives away. We're throwing them on a scrap heap at an early age, sometimes when they're children, and they're living a life on benefits when they could achieve so much more, have a much better life, a much more prosperous life, and pass on, you know, a better life to their children. And we're stuck in this trap now. We've been in it for 25 years, where children are being born into workless households, and they think that's acceptable, and it's not acceptable. The way you break the poverty cycle in this country is through education, through hard work, through training, and through a decent job. And we have to get back to that. These ideas, by the way, which we are pushing now, they shouldn't be controversial. These weren't controversial ideas 40 and 50 years ago. This was mainstream stuff. And now we're being called all sorts of names in the left-wing media, saying we're harsh, we're cruel, we're wicked. This is normal stuff, this is. This is what my parents and grandparents are brought up on.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk about that other issue that I think Labour are unlikely to do anything about, and yet the public is screaming for them to do something about that, of course, is the migrant crisis and the number of boats coming over. These great mega dinghies now are ferrying hundreds of people over in a single voyage. Something like 3,500 migrants have come across the channel illegally since Andy Burnham took the reins about 3 weeks ago. So the problem is getting worse and worse and worse. Now, you were over there, I think it was beginning of last week. Principally, Lee, what did you learn from going to the north coast of France to meet those migrants? I mean, did you perceive the sheer scale of the problem? Because as I understand it, there are thousands of them over there on the north coast of France, milling around, waiting for their turn to get onto a mega dinghy. We've got a government doing nothing about it. What did you feel that you learnt the most when you went over there?
Well, I'm in the fortunate position, Kevin. This was my second visit. I went three years ago with the Home Affairs Select Committee. On my first visit, it was noticeable that it was all men, young men from Eritrea, Sudan, and other African countries. This time, the camp was much bigger, but there was lots of women and lots of children. And I would suspect that these were from countries like Afghanistan, maybe Iran or Iraq, and that sort of country, and a few from Africa, from Somalia as well. And you're quite right. I mean, the police don't give a monkeys, to be honest. They don't give a toss. They know that these migrants in these camps, once they're in a camp in northern France, they've basically got one foot in the UK. It might take them 6, 7, even 10 times, or they might be looking at the first time. But once they've paid the money, the 1,000 or 1,200 euros, they are literally in the UK, and they will keep trying and trying and trying. And these boats that we see now, I call them the Burnham boats, they're absolutely huge, these boats are. So the people smugglers are laughing at us. They can make nigh on £1 million for one crossing on one of these boats. And like you said earlier, these boats are actually being, indirect. Well, they're coming from China, but then they're being exported. They're coming to the UK to Folkestone, and we're sending them back out to Europe. And then they're coming back to the UK. You could not make this stuff up.
It's absurd.
It's an easy fix. Detain and deport every single one that comes into this country.
In terms of Burnham, he's allegedly on his listening tour of Britain. But the one thing he won't listen to is the pleas, the cries of the people of Britain. The number one issue in this country that people want solved is the migrant crisis. They want to stop the boats. He's just doesn't even really want to talk about it. He keeps telling us that Labour's plan to stop the boats is obviously working. It obviously is not working, Lee. You can see this. What do you make of his latest scheme, Mr. Burnham, which is to, if you like, use migrants as kind of weapons in the class war, to plonk these huge migrant camps of 1,000 or more right on the doorsteps of middle-class villages around Britain? There's already 2 or 3 about to get these mega camps. There are more in the pipeline. It doesn't really get to grips with the problem, just using it or classifying it as a class war issue. We're going to make the middle classes do their share. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is ridiculous. I was in Suffolk last week and Norfolk. I visited the Barnum camp, and villagers there in nearby Thetford absolutely furious. They're up to 1,250 undocumented young fighting age males are going to be plonked into that camp, literally 1 mile away from the beautiful town of Thetford. And it wouldn't be so bad, Kevin, if these illegal migrants were detained securely in these camps. But we all know what's going to happen. They're going to be bussed in on a daily basis, probably taxis, bussed into the village to mosey around, cause problems. We've got HMOs in Thetford as well, right next to a local primary school. These men, and I don't know what's up with the government and the previous government, these men are coming from backward cultures. They come from countries that don't respect our women and young girls. And there will be more sexual attacks, there'll be more rapes, and God forbid there'll be more murders. We know it's going to happen. And all they keep doing, this government, is saying now we're going to spread them around the country. I tell you what you're doing, Burnham, if you listen to this, because you're an absolute moron. He's not here to defend himself. You are spreading the problem all over the country, and it's going to get worse. People are going to get attacked. People are going to get beaten up and sexually molested by these people that you you, Burnham, are imported into this country.
Yeah, he doesn't get it, does he? I mean, Labour for a long time have been trying to sell us this new business model about the migrant crisis. We're going to get them out of hotels, we're going to put them into disused military camps and different larger forms of accommodation because that will save us a lot of money. Well, that's nice, but that's not what the people of this country want. We're not asking the government to save money on the accommodation of asylum seekers. We're asking them to stop the boats. We're asking them to stop these asylum seekers coming into the country. And yet Andy Burnham, like Starmer before him, continues to let thousands and thousands and thousands of mainly young male migrants break into the country illegally shortly before we give them 50 quid a week benefits, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, free driving lessons and so on and so forth. He's not getting to the heart of the problem, which is we need to stop the boats. He's just redistributing the asylum seekers. That's not what we want, is it?
It's literally spreading the misery around the country and saying that, you know, because you've got a few quid in your back pocket, you're going to have to suffer as well. And one of the biggest problems we've got, Kevin, with these illegal migrants is the HMOs. It's an unbelievable problem. In my constituency, last year, we had an HMO which Serco took over. There was 2 nurses living in that HMO, working at my local hospital, and 2 other workers. Serco booted them out. They put 4 illegal migrants in. One of the illegal migrants went on to rape a young, vulnerable girl in Ashfield. He's got 13 years for that creature, as he was from Pakistan. This is another unintended consequence, well, it's intended, that workers who, you know, were working in an area for maybe 6 months, a year, or on a temporary contract, are being kicked out of HMOs all over the country, so we can put illegal migrants in who will not work. You know, they're coming here, they're sponging off the system. Not only will they not work, they're going out committing all sorts of awful crimes. I mean, good God, what are we doing in this country?
Yeah, it's mad. I mean, nobody's suggesting that, you know, all of these migrants are dangers to women. I mean, most of them are not, but some of them are, and that's the problem, Lee. And I've been talking to these poor villagers who've got the prospect, the grim prospect of suddenly having migrant camps with 1,250 young men, 1,500, 1,000, plonked right next to villages. And apart from the fact that will ruin village life, it will make life for these villages completely different, particularly the children. It does really present a serious safety to women, danger to women problem, doesn't it?
It's a danger to everybody, women and girls especially, but also to pensioners, old people that are scared to go out. It's going to affect local businesses. People will literally, Kevin, be scared to go out. We've seen it before. You see it on social media. Gangs of these youths literally hanging around parks, hanging around schools, luring at women, you know, getting up to all sorts of horrible stuff. I mean, frankly, it's disgusting. I don't want these men in my country. This is our country. We fought for centuries to make us a decent, safe, a brilliant country. I think, you know, the best country in the world. And over the past few years, successive governments decided to give it away to cultures that simply cannot adapt to our way of life, do not like us, got no intentions of working or respecting our law, our culture or anything. It's disgusting. Every single one that's come over on a small boat should be sent back. It's as simple as that.
They've broken our laws. I don't know why they're allowed to stay. Lee, great to have you on the show. Come on again soon. That was really excellent. That is Reform UK's party chairman. He's the MP for Ashfield, the one and only Lee Anderson. You know, been pretty hardcore about these migrants that are allowed into the country. I think it's only fair to stress, you know, we should not give the impression that, you know, every single one of these young males who come across the channel illegally represent a threat to Britain, to women, to children. They're all sex criminals. They're not. But the problem is some of them are, and a disproportionate number. And we know what we're talking about. They come from cultures that don't respect women in the same way that we do. We know, for example, Afghan migrants who live here, asylum seekers, are 22 times more likely to be arrested for or convicted of sex crimes than British nationals. 22 times more likely. So, While no one's saying that all male migrants are a problem, too many of them are, and as Lee says, we do continue to import a sex crime epidemic. We really do. It's extraordinary, as Lee says. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Let me know what you think. 03444 991,000. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll talk to Tom Jones. He's the Deputy Online Editor of The Critic. A couple more stories about our ongoing migrant crisis. Evil people smugglers are being offered half-price tickets across the channel illegally if they can bring a baby with them, because the people smugglers like a baby on board, because that means they're like a human shield, that nobody's going to send the boat back or anything like that if there's a baby on board. So they like to have a baby on board. So if you can bring a baby when you get onto your mega dinghy, as they are now, not really small boats anymore, huge boats, you'll get a half-price ticket because they like the idea of the baby. It's a human shield. Also, we'll deal with this story that these mega dinghies, when they come to Britain across the channel from the mainland, it's not the first time they've been in Britain. On their journey, if you like, from China, where they're built to mainland Europe, they come via Britain. They come to Britain and they're shipped to mainland Europe, where the people smugglers pick them up, fill them with migrants and send them back to Britain. What on earth are we doing? 03444 991,000. We'll talk about that next. Stick around.
£1 donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to the Deputy Online Editor at The Critic. He's also Conservative Councillor for Scotland and Lower Wensleydale. He is author, Substack writer, Tom Jones. Hi, Tom.
Hi, how are we doing?
I'm all right. Good to have you on the show, as always. First of all, your thoughts about this curious journey that apparently these mega dinghies are making. They are, unsurprisingly, made in China, like so much of other stuff. Everything seems to be made in China, but these dinghies, these mega dinghies being constructed, made in China, I think is probably quite sinister. But anyway, they're made in China, then they're transported to Europe by cargo ships, which apparently, first of all, before they get to mainland Europe, stop off in places like Felixstowe. So before they get to mainland Europe to be filled with migrants to sail across the English Channel, these dinghies actually come to Britain first. So they go to Felixstowe, then they carry on to mainland Europe, then they're taken over by the people smugglers who send them back to Britain full of illegal migrants. That sums it up, the absurdity of what's going on, the bizarre absurdity that these mega dinghies, when they arrive here full of migrants, it's not the first time they've been in this country. The first time they were in this country was on their journey when they were being shipped from China. How mad is that?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Britain's border enforcement, incompetence really is the watchword.
Yeah.
I think there are two interesting things here. There's the China element and the element of the boats themselves. To touch on the latter point, these boats are now made to order. These boats that can hold 250 people, you know, it's the same amount of people as the average EasyJet flight. There is literally no other use for them than channel crossing. So they are now being made to order, and you can guarantee they are not ordering one at once. So I think we are now going to see an era of much, much bigger boats coming over, fundamentally because they can invest the capital in these boats now because it's a stable, profitable industry. People smuggling is pretty much Britain's only growth industry these days. And I think the other element we've got here is the Chinese influence. We've seen, particularly on the US southern border, actually, very questionable arrivals of people from China. We know that the opioid crisis, a lot of that comes through the southern border. A lot of those drugs are manufactured in China deliberately to go to America. And so I think China has a destabilizing influence. It knows exactly what it's doing. It's seen an opportunity. You know, it's perhaps not doing anything more nefarious than trying to destabilize its geopolitical rivals. But migration is a weakness for the European states. You know, not long ago, we saw Poland close its eastern border with Belarus because they said that Russia was weaponizing migration as well.
I mean, there are so many nefarious elements to the migrant crisis, particularly in terms of the people smugglers' business model. And we're learning, this was a very horrific little detail. Last week, we were all a bit traumatised by those uncomfortable, disturbing pictures of all the young male migrants fighting to get into a dinghy. And they're kind of manhandling like it's just a rag doll, this tiny little baby in his rompers, you know, being held like this, and the kid just like hanging off this guy. Now you think, how did that happen? Well, it turns out that if the people smugglers, if you can turn up with a baby, they'll give you a half-price ticket. So it costs around about between £1,000 and £1,400 to get across the channel on one of these illegal dinghies. If you can turn up with a baby, they'll give you it for about 700 quid because they like to have a baby on board because that means that immediately they get all the humanitarian aid you could possibly want. So as soon as the Border Force or the RNLI see there's a baby on board, everybody is rescued and everybody is happy. So they're using babies as a kind of human shield to make sure that the British authorities look upon them kindly. I mean, it's sort of not surprising, but it's kind of depressing, isn't it?
I think need it be a reminder that these are bad hombres we are dealing with, to quote Donald Trump. The other reason they're taking him on is that they basically so that the French police won't intervene, because the French police, to their credit, have started intervening a little bit more since Shabana Mahmood started paying them by results. But it's a reminder why fundamentally smash the gangs won't work, because they can simply work around the system. Whatever we throw up against them, there will always be the economic incentive to bring people to this country, because we have an overly generous settlement for migrants and we have no proper system for getting rid of them. And, you know, obviously this is a disgusting example, but you know, yesterday we learned that Patrick Christie's, the GB News journalist, has had death threats because he's reporting on these people.
I've never heard of him, but but anyway, that notwithstanding, what worries me about all this is that Andy Burnham doesn't seem to have noticed that one of the big jokes of Keir Starmer's regime was smash the gangs, we're going to smash the gangs, which became like a musical joke, everybody laughing their heads off because he didn't smash any gangs, and we all knew, even if you did, if you smashed every single gang tonight, arrested every single people smuggler, put them all in jail tonight, there will be new people smugglers tomorrow morning. It's called supply and demand. There are still migrants want to come across the channel. There will always be people to meet that demand. So smash the gangs was a fallacy anyway. So what worries me about this is that Andy Burnham doesn't seem to have noticed that. So he said last week, we're going to pursue these people relentlessly. Once again, A, you probably won't catch anybody. B, even if you do, so what? He hasn't got the memo, has he?
No, I mean, at least Starmer had a slogan, right? Andy Burnham hasn't even got a slogan so far. He's just made the most milquetoast statements about migration. If he's, you know, touched on it at all, really, it's been thanks to questions from journalists. He's not volunteering this information. And I've got to be honest, I don't think it's an issue that he has any particular handle on. I think that's part of the reason why he was so easily lobbied to keep Shabana Mahmood in the Home Office. I think this is not really an issue he wants to touch. He has been elected a bit like Starmer on the false idea that you can just do nice Labour things without having to make hard choices. Yeah. And I think we will just see that continue to be rolled out on migration. Fundamentally, the Labour backbenchers do not want to tackle the legal frameworks that keep people here who should not be here and the pull factors that are bringing people here in the first place. Yeah. And without tackling those, the boats crisis, as you say, does not go away.
Yeah, here's what I think about Andy Burnham and indeed most of his cabinet. They don't care about the small boat crisis. They don't care about the migrant crisis. They just pay it lip service. Andy Burnham couldn't care less. He's too busy worrying about bus fares and millions of mayors and all that kind of claptrap that the rest of us couldn't care less about. He does not care about the migrant crisis, and that's why Labour aren't going to solve it, which is bad news because the people of this country really are worried about it. But our Prime Minister, he doesn't care. Tom, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much. Tom Jones there, Deputy Online Editor at The Critic and also Conservative Counsellor for Scotland and Lower Wensleydale. Let me know what you think about what he was saying. You know, we have a government that doesn't care. That's the problem. They don't care about the migrant crisis, do they? 03444991000. What would you do to stop the boats? Because the government doesn't seem to have any idea at all. They're just going to redistribute the asylum seekers and put them next to my middle-class houses. So that's really going to sort things out, isn't it? It's pathetic. 03444991000. Next up, we're going to go back to the escalating fury, the escalating argument, row about the early prison release scheme. Because, you know, the government keeps saying, yeah, we're going to keep Andrew Harper's killers behind bars. Yeah, I'm confident we can keep them behind bars. Yeah, you might want to say, Andy Burnham, you're confident, but you haven't come up with a plan of how to do it yet, have you? So right now, don't let them con you, folks. Those two scumbags who killed PC Andrew Harper are getting out next month because despite what the Prime Minister said, he's got no plan to keep them behind bars. He hasn't worked out how he can keep them behind bars. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Andrew Harper, PC Andrew Harper's killers. As things stand, make no mistakes, folks, they're still getting out next month. We're learning now of other monsters who may well get out next month. There's a guy called Timothy Bremer. He's a cop, a killer cop, who strangled his lover after she revealed their affair. Well, he too may walk free early under this scheme, and naturally the family and the loved ones of his victims are not at all happy. So it's not just these two killers of Andrew Harper who are going to walk free under this prison release scheme. So there's all sorts of issues to discuss here. Let's do that with the Conservative MP for Beverley and Holderness, Graham Stewart. Welcome, Graham.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
This has come into the frame now that if they release these two scumbags, the killers of Andrew Harper, next month, they're going to have to basically say that all manslaughterers will get out as well, because they are both guilty of manslaughter. So, for example, one person would have to be released is a guy called Timothy Bremer. He's a former cop turned killer who strangled his lover to death because she revealed their extramarital affair. So he's a former constable with Dorset Police, and he will get out early next month under this scheme if these two scumbags who killed PC Andrew Harper get out. You see the problem. But I think the real problem here is as fury escalates over the possibility, or at the moment the probability, that all these manslaughterers, including the killers of Andrew Harper, may be released. I think the problem centres on a government. As things stand, we have a Prime Minister, Graham, Andy Burnham. His last statement on this was, "I'm confident we can find a way to keep these two killers behind bars." He then said he'd instructed Justice Secretary Alex Norris to look into ways of keeping them behind bars. And that is where we stand. That was where our Prime Minister left the issue. In other words, giving the impression that the government was across this, these two killers won't be let out. As things stand, Graham, they're getting let out, because this government, apart from weasel words, propaganda statements to soothe the nation, actually has done nothing about this.
No, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, it goes to the heart of the way it looks as if Andy Burnham will govern, that he doesn't do the work, he hasn't thought things through properly, he isn't consistent, he isn't coherent. And what he does do is he thinks he can govern by vibe. So, Kevin, well done for highlighting the outrage, pick some cases, and Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, will start to bend on those. But that's not justice. The real injustice is going to be the people we never hear of. Not only that we don't hear about the perpetrators, we don't hear about the victims, the people we don't know of who are scared to death that their domestic abuser is going to be let out of prison to terrorize them once again. And that's why you can't govern this way. You have to have proper rules, you have to have a plan, you need to think things through, and you can't pretend that having 50 videographers or whatever it is he's hired to do TikTok videos showing what a down with the people guy he is, sitting in a pub choosing the best snack, that's a way to govern. It really isn't. It's a serious business, it's a lot of responsibility, and you need people who have thought through what they're going to do and will make sure that they can do it. And because the other end of that, and that all sounds very tedious, and this long-standing politician talking about it in that way, but the reality is that person terrified at home, the person you never hear of. They're not going to go to their local paper. They don't want to highlight the issue more than it is. And that's what we've got. We've got a government which is behaving this way on something as sensitive as this, but it seems to be a kind of government by vibe, when what we need is a government of principle, a government that sticks to its guns because it's thought it through and is prepared to pay the price, including in public anger, where it has come up with the best possible solution. And unfortunately, Andy Burnham wants everyone to love him all the time, and that's no way to govern.
Yeah, and as things stand, the task he's given Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, is keep the two killers of Andrew Harper behind bars. There's only one way he can do this. So it was now about 2 weeks ago when he was kind of embarrassed into saying, well, we were going to let 6,000 very dangerous men free next month, but in view of the protests, I agree, we shouldn't let the sex offenders out, the rapists, the sexual assaulters, the harassers. We shouldn't let them out. So, well done, Andy. So that's 1,000 fewer men being released next month. Still 5,000 being released. Now, the only way you can keep the killers of Andrew Harper behind bars is if he adds to the list of those exempted. He's already exempted now sex criminals. They will not be let out. In order to keep Andrew Harper's killers behind bars, he has to now exempt all manslaughterers. He can't. People say, well, why doesn't he just say those two can't come out? I'll tell you why. Because if he just says those two can't come out, the government will immediately be hit by a confetti of lawsuits on behalf of every single other manslaughterer behind bars who isn't getting let out. So it's either one or the other. But right now, I think he's conning us by saying, yeah, I'm confident a way can be found to keep these two behind bars. Yeah, it's all very well saying that, but you're nowhere near finding that way, are you, Andy? And nor is Alex Norris, who many people in government feel is just being sort of fatted up to be thrown under the bus. When he doesn't find a way, Andy will go, I'm furious, and get someone else to do the job. But as things stand, this government is pretending it won't be letting these two scumbags out, but they are going to get let out unless they come up with some mechanism to keep them behind bars. We're being gaslit, Graham.
We are, unfortunately, and he's just got into government, and we all want to give the guy a chance. We're hoping after the grim days of Keir Starmer that we might have someone who's a bit more in touch, a bit more human, who's actually politically experienced, will be able to bring a bit of order back to government. A plan. He's had plenty of time. He's been wanting this job for his whole life. You'd hope he might have an idea how to do it. Instead, he's governing like a drunk driver. He's swerving all over the road. He is, isn't he? I mean, and even as we move beyond who they release, you're suddenly looking at the probation service. It's under extraordinary pressure. There were, I think, more than 48,000 recalls last year, the highest figure in the published series, and nearly 30% up on the year before. And that means that they can't cope. And now we've got, I don't know if you saw this, Kevin, more than 90% of the NAPO, that's the union probation members, have backed strike action.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got, and if you're veering around and it looks like you're going to respond to whoever shouts at you loudest. It doesn't work in government. And we've gone from one disaster in Keir Starmer, robotic and too slow to adjust, but with no plan, to a man who thinks that he can be all our friend if he just wears a cool enough top and flashes his eyelashes. It's not going to work. It's a tough business. And at the end of it are those people we will never hear of, Kevin. Never. I won't talk about them. You won't have them on the show. They're hidden in the background, terrified at some monster being let out of prison early, and it just ruining. Even that person doesn't do anything. The fact is that they thought that the sentence, which was publicly announced in a public court, they were going to be protected. Suddenly you can have these people let out horribly early because of a government which isn't thinking things through. We need someone who thinks things through. Tell us the truth, even if it's ugly, but let's get on with it. Tell the truth, stick to your guns. And as it is, we've got them doing anything but, and it's...
9,500 victims of domestic abuse are currently terrified because 9,500 very serious domestic abusers, so serious they got sent to jail, will be, at this stage, released next month. All these people they're releasing is just not acceptable. Can I get a quick, before you go, to change tack for a second, what's your thoughts on... I read this story at the weekend, I thought that is probably more worrying still about this Prime Minister. He announced over the weekend that we should all be very grateful to Extinction Rebellion, that mob that closed all of our bridges, brought chaos to the cities and the roads of this country, protesting about oil and all that. We should all be very grateful, says the Prime Minister, to Extinction Rebellion for bringing the issue of climate change up the political agenda. That's what our Prime Minister thinks. We should be grateful to this organisation that closed down the bridges, caused traffic chaos, stopped people getting to hospital, stopped people managing to go about their business, ruining the country day after day. The Prime Minister thinks we should be grateful to Extinction Rebellion. That's very special, isn't it?
Tell that to the mother who had a premature birth on the way, absolutely filled with anxiety, as well as the pains, and couldn't get to hospital because of these people who think they're above the law. And he's showing that his instincts are in all the wrong places. You have to, as the head of government, uphold the law. And the law's a tough thing. And you can have sympathy with some people who break it. Not that I have any for Extinction Rebellion, because we won't go into all the arguments around oil and gas and energy. But no, it's, again, his values are in the wrong place. He needs to be on the side of the British people. They're a law-abiding people, expect the rules to be applied consistently, and have a government which is prepared to take tough decisions in the long-term interests of the nation, not trying to get through the day's news cycles.
Exactly right.
We've had that. We don't need that. We need, a government I shouldn't go back, but what you want is a government that you respect, that even though you don't always agree with it, you can anticipate what they will say because they have a set of values they're prepared to apply. Even if you don't agree with them, at least you know what they're going to do, and they are clear about what their values are and how they're going to do it. And gosh, if we're going to make the people who throw paint over our beautiful buildings, who stop pregnant women getting to hospital, and hold them up as heroes, you really are. The people who are trying to tear down the statues, rewrite the past, they're not in line with the British people. I'm proud of this country, and one of the things that's made us different is we're one of the least corrupt countries in the world. We're one of the most law-abiding because the rules apply to all of us, regardless of your class, your sex, your colour. That's what makes Britain a great country, and we don't need a Prime Minister who thinks that if the vibe is right, he can side with lawbreakers. That's, as you rightly say, really sinister and disturbing. So early on, he thinks that's a good idea, and it tells you who he wants to align himself with. He's aligning himself with the far left within the Labour Party, the very people who have stood in the way of any sensible measure, and there weren't many, but any sensible measure Keir Starmer ever came up with Labour rebels were prepared to take him on.
Well said, Graham. Really good to have you on the show, as always. Graham Stewart, MP Tory MP for Beverley and Holderness there. Actually, Andy Burnham said he wanted, over the weekend, he said, what I want this government to be known, my government to be known for, as a government that gets things done. Well, so far, he hasn't got anything done. He's just said a lot. Oh, he has got number 10 North up and running, but nobody knows why. He's got this ridiculous office in Manchester up and running, but he hasn't actually done anything apart from that. But he's said a lot. He hasn't done anything. He's said a lot. So far, I wouldn't say that Andy Burnham's government looks like a government that gets things done. Would you? 03444991000. I want to know what you think about Reform UK's proposals for slashing our grotesque £350 billion a year welfare bill by at least £50 billion. I think that's a fairly conservative slashing of the expenditure. I think we could get 100 billion, probably more, off that horrible bill. What do you think? 03444991000. And we need to talk about Jason Arday. People on the left, Cambridge University, trying to blame the press, the media, for the death of poor Jason Arday. Clearly a vulnerable young fantasist making up lies about himself. Why didn't someone point that out to him? Why didn't Cambridge say, you can't be a professor here at Cambridge because you're a liar, you're a fantasist? But they didn't, did they? They said, oh, yes, you can be a professor because you're the youngest ever black professor. It wasn't the press. It was the people that put him in this position. Once he was in that position and his fantastical, hilarious lies became known, of course the press were going to report it. It's not the press's fault, folks. It really isn't. Let me know. You might disagree with me. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Was it the media or was it Cambridge? Was it the publishing profession? Was it the charities? Was it the BBC? All these people who treated him like he was the second coming, when in fact he was a vulnerable young man making up ludicrous lies about himself. It was clear he needed help. Nobody gave him help. They just venerated him, which didn't do him any good at all. 03444991000. We'll take your calls after the break. Stay where you are.
£1 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No. No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get. And so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, get on the phone, let me know what you think about reforms, proposals to slash our obscene welfare bill, £350 billion a year and rising, by £50 billion. I mean, I think that should be just the start, don't you? We need to get to grips with that. Let me know what you think. Is it time to attack our welfare bill? It is ruining the country. It is ruining this economy. 03444991000. Jason Arday, is it the media's fault? Was he the victim of a media witch hunt? Or maybe was it Cambridge University's fault for hoisting him onto up to a position that he was not qualified for? We think he had about 3 GCSEs and some kind of PE deal from Roehampton University. He must be the least qualified Cambridge professor in history. Yeah, whose fault was it? 03444991000. Before we go to break, we are going to talk to Elizabeth in Chorley. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello.
You are not happy with the Prime Minister. What
no.
reservations do you have about Andy Burnham?
Quite a few.
Yeah, we all do. What particular reservations do you have, Elizabeth?
I just think he's a liar.
Yeah.
I think he tinkers around the edges. He's on about pubs today. He was on about these barbecues the other day. What about the defence of the country? What about all these illegal immigrants? And what about the massive tax bills that we're all facing? What about it?
Well, he doesn't want to talk about difficult issues. He's too busy talking about getting bus fares down to £2
out on people's mobile phones about barbecues. Whoever heard anything as stupid as that?
Yeah. Well, I've got a note here from, this is from Ian in Walsall, Elizabeth, you might like this. He said, when they release those 2 cop killers, maybe the government should put out a warning then, telling us there's 2 cop killers on the loose. That would be a better use of that emergency system.
Yeah, well, maybe they should send warnings out about the next 230-person boat that's landing.
Yeah, they should do that. I'll tell you what would be better, Elizabeth, was if they didn't send out any warnings at all. It's nanny state claptrap. We don't want to know about all of this. Keep your nose out of our lives, Mother Government. Elizabeth, really good to talk to you. An excellent call. Thank you. Elizabeth in Chorley. Next up, we're going to talk to William Clouston after the news. Stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason Arday, whose fault was it? The poor guy has died. We know why. He was pilloried because of his ridiculous, fantastical lies he told about himself, and the fact that Cambridge professors decided to believe him. I think not because they actually did believe him, but because they wanted to boast that they had the youngest ever black professor, 37 years old. He wasn't qualified. He couldn't handle that. He couldn't handle when it all got stripped away from him, when he was found out, when he was exposed for the ludicrous liar that he was. And everybody starts, all the left wing starts saying that's the press's fault. That's our fault. That's the media's fault. No, it's not. No, it's not. The media reported on a valid story. Cambridge made a fool of itself. Its diversity obsession, forcing it or making it appoint this guy to a professorship. He wasn't qualified, he couldn't handle it. It's their fault, I contend. Who killed Jason Arday? 03444991000. You might not agree with me. If you don't, let me know. Do you think it was the media? A lot of people in the media were quite hard on him, but hey-ho, that's what happens. But it's not the media's fault that the story emerged. That's Cambridge University's fault. 03444991000. Also, what do you think of Reform UK's plan to attack the welfare system, the grotesque welfare bill? They want to get it down by £50 billion. 03444991000. And let me know what you think about the killers of PC, Andrew Harper, who, as things stand, make no mistake, will not be released next month, despite all the soothing propaganda that our government is dishing out. Okay, the Prime Minister's confident he can come up with a way of keeping them behind bars. Yeah, well, it's about time you did come up with that way then, isn't it? You haven't come up with a way so far. As things stand, folks, those killers of Andrew Harper are still getting out. What do you think? 03444991000. Let's go over to my next guest. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day with the leader of the Social Democratic Party, William Clouston. Welcome, William.
Good to be here, Kevin. Thank you.
Now, the reason I wanted to get you on was because you're an excellent commentator, of course, always anyway. But I felt a bit bad because there was Nigel Farage and 33 contenders in the Clacton by-election, and I was constantly, I wasn't alone saying, oh, it's Nigel Farage and 33 losers, 33 weirdos, freaks. And every time I said it, William, I thought of you and I felt a bit bad. So you were arguably, arguably the only other very serious candidate in that Clacton election. Why did you, given all the circumstances of that by-election, the other parties boycotting it, etc., if you like, Nigel Farage calling the shots, deciding that he would have a by-election, why did you decide to stand there?
We don't contest all by-elections, as you know, Kevin, quite a few, but they are absolutely brutal. They're extremely difficult to get a good score on, and you have to enter the race before you know how many people are in the race, which is a tricky one. The reason for standing at Clacton was that I thought it was wrong that the major parties were boycotting it. I think it's a proper election. You can't deny that it's a by-election under the legal terms of that definition. It was triggered by the leader of the party that happens to be, well, until very recently, leading the polls and has done for the last 2 years. So I thought the big parties were in a state of denial, and I thought that the people of Clacton deserved a sensible choice. There were a lot of quite eccentric characters in that election, and Kevin, I drank quite a few beers in the, in the Wetherspoons, on the front there at Clacton. I met quite a few of them, and look, they have a right to be in it, but some of them were extraordinarily eccentric. And and I thought, we should try and offer the people of Clacton a decent choice. I have to say, I mean, we were disappointed by the reaction of the media generally, because they made it into a binary between Binface and Farage, and all the people that don't like Farage wanted Binface to do very well, and there was almost a sort of a conspiracy really to shut anyone else out, and I think we were shut out, unfortunately.
Yeah, why doesn't your party get a better hearing? I mean, of course, our friend Rod Liddle was a member of the Social Democratic Party. You wrote movingly and funnily about him in the Spectator magazine. But, you and Rod and the policies that you espouse, I mean, they're sensible, mainstream policies. I mean, people might not agree with them, but your policies are not stupid or eccentric or weird. They're sensible policies. Why don't you get a better hearing? Why don't you do better than you do, William?
We have grown, but it's very difficult to get mainstream coverage because, to put it brutally, most of the mainstream press, and I mean the BBC don't like us very much because we're not woke. We want a national border, and we say we want to end mass immigration. They think we're terrible. So we don't get very much off that. In fact, I'll tell you a story, Kevin. 2 years ago, during the South Yorkshire mayoral election, where our candidate Dave Bettany did very well, the BBC got in touch with us about a tweet. No, it wasn't a tweet. It was something on Facebook that David had copied. It didn't even generate it. It was a joke about an asylum hotel. It was a little bit risky, I suppose. But anyway, he did it, and the BBC got in touch with us and wanted us to sort of get all flapped about it. And I said, basically, get lost, because this is the first time you've got in touch with me after we have put out serious bits of work like the End of Indifference Green Paper on Economics or Field Farms and Foods product and all the rest of it. So they're not interested in anything serious, Kevin. What they wanted us to do was to say, oh, well, that's terrible. Let's cower because they think they've shamed us into something. It's just totally unserious. And I'm afraid that is very typical. Binface, again, he was given, half an hour, 40 minutes on some major podcasts. The Telegraph on the day of the poll put out a piece, an interview. Well, the interview with me and Tim Stanley was about 20 minutes. They put out 2.5 minutes. They had about 20 minutes with Binface. And I find it irritating because, the country is heading for fiscal bankruptcy. The welfare bill's out of control. We have a massive trade gap. We're deindustrializing. We're becoming a vassal state, and you can't control the border. And yet, all they were interested in was Binface. It's pathetic.
Yeah, Binface, of course, was the establishment candidate. He was one. Yeah. BBC loved him because he was one of them. Yeah. The guy's an Oxford graduate BBC comedy writer, which proves that he has no idea what's funny, which may explain why he styles himself as Count Binface, because that isn't funny. But you can't expect proper comedy from BBC comedy writers, William, obviously. No. They don't know anything about what's funny. Let me ask you about what's your view on Jason Arday? People like me today in the media, some people, I understand it, they're pointing the finger at the media, saying that some kind of racist witch hunt hounded poor Jason to his death. Currently, as we speak, William, there is a vigil going on. It started at 6 p.m. In Trafalgar Square from Stand Up to Racism. The organiser of this vigil is called Wayman Bennett, and he said that Jason Arday's death was, and I quote, the result of a racist witch hunt. This doesn't help, does it? Because his death was not the result of a racist witch hunt. I don't think that anybody should be pointing the finger at the media. Yes, some members of the media possibly went over the top about this story, but the story was presented to us courtesy of the idiots at Cambridge University who decided to overlook his profound lack of qualification to be a Cambridge professor, put him on a pedestal, and in the end, when the castle came crumbling down, The poor guy was proved to be the vulnerable guy that we knew. We knew he was vulnerable because of the ridiculous lies he told about each other. So I don't think it is fair to point the finger at the media. There is one Cambridge academic, Lord Woolley, at the moment is saying we need an inquiry on the way the media behaves. No, we need an inquiry on why Cambridge University decided to turn a blind eye to all of this guy's lies.
I think that's very well put, generally. I mean, obviously, it's very sad that someone's committed suicide, and anyone that, you know, knows families that have been through that knows how appalling it is, and so there is great sadness in that. But I think there is a sense. No, I think actually, if there's going to be an inquiry, you have to have a look at our universities, which are, some people say, woke joke universities now. Who is going to pay, you know, thousands of pounds and get thousands of pounds into debt when universities are literally? I mean, truth has fallen, Kevin. Truth has fallen. In truth,
yeah.
Jason Arday used Cambridge, and in truth, Cambridge used him, and he wasn't someone that should have been given a professorship at all on the evidence. And I think they were conning themselves and conning the students and conning the whole idea of truth and freedom of thought and inquiry and what a university should actually be. But, you know, the rot is there. You know it's there. I know it's there. It's not just education department or sociology at Cambridge. It's everywhere. I mean, you know, virtually every top university does this sort of thing. They've all got diversity appointees checking everything. And I think the sad thing is, I think the universities, if they had any bottle, if they had courage, they would still go for truth and over this wishful thinking and appointing people because of their colour of their skin, which is basically what they did with him.
Yeah, and the only reason that the colour of his skin has become an issue is because that was central to him becoming a professor at Cambridge in the first place. They wanted to be able to say, look at us, aren't we great? We've got the youngest ever black professor at Cambridge University, 37 years old. So that's the only reason his skin colour has cropped up in the narrative, if you like. Because the truth is, you know, I know this, I know what makes a story. I've been doing this a long time. If this guy was white and this story got out, it still would have made a story, you know, that there's a guy who conned his way into becoming a professor by telling professors already at Cambridge, for example, that he ran 35 marathons in 30 days with a broken leg. You know, that kind of nonsense. It's the fact that they chose to believe that claptrap.
It's an absurdity.
Yeah, it isn't. To blame the media is classic shoot the messenger. Just to quickly let me tell you what Wayman Bennett, the organiser of this vigil in Trafalgar Square, just said. He said, parts of the press did not respect life. Other parts said they didn't respect our rights we fought for. Don't know where he got that from. That our ancestors fought for. Anyone who attacks DEI does not respect that, asking for division, inequality and exclusion. That should not be allowed to dominate. Frankly, William, that is taking the Jason Arday tragedy and race grifting it, isn't it? That's all that is.
Yeah, some of these people are completely obsessed with race, and everything is about race. And it's very simplistic, garbage narrative, which is if you're white, you're an oppressor, and if you're any sort of minority, you are oppressed. It's insulting to all parties in that. And just to get back on the press, remember that Cambridge University and/or Arday tried to suppress legitimate inquiries that were made by the Times education journalist, and threats were made, and that was basically bullying, I think.
It certainly was. That guy is a victim of DEI, the obsession with diversity. And those academics that appointed him to that lofty position, it wasn't to make him look good. It was to make them look good. It was about them. Clearly, this guy was vulnerable. I kept saying it. I said, we should be careful about this guy. He's clearly, you know, a disturbed young fantasist. This isn't a story about him. It's about idiots who chose to believe him. And now we're being told in the media that we're racist, that we conducted a witch hunt. It's just not true.
But Cambridge University have no credibility now. It's collapsed. You know, honestly, the reputation of that institution is at stake in this, because it's not just what happened. It's not just appointing someone that was not, fit for the post. Really, it was doubling down and criticising anyone that noticed that. That was what happened, and that's the real scandal, is the reaction of all the other academics at Cambridge pretending that plagiarism isn't plagiarism, or pretending that plagiarism doesn't matter. If plagiarism doesn't matter, then the academy is worthless, absolutely worthless.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Now, last point really from you, if you don't mind, William. Look, here's the big issue that concerns this nation more than anything else. They might like to pretend otherwise, but the truth is the number one issue concerning the people of Britain is the migrant crisis. The boats coming across the channel time and time again, now these mega dinghies. Why do you think it is, given that the public, are screaming, crying for this government to solve the crisis, please stop the boats? Why do you think that the government doesn't seem to be particularly bothered? Why do you think Andy Burnham isn't really listening to that? He's just shrugging his shoulders and saying, oh, never mind that. Let's tell them that we'll get the bus fares down to £2. Let's tell them we'll give millions of mayors, devolution, social care. Why is he not addressing the issue that really concerns the people of this country?
There's a very, very simple answer to that, Gavin, is that to deal with it, he would have to go against all of the things that he's believed in the last 30 years. And all of the people that govern us think the same thing. They're all basically kumbaya, hello birds, hello sky progressives. It's all about open borders and being nice to everyone. And anyone that thinks you should have a border, or thinks your nation state depends on having a border, is obviously awful. And so that's why you get Yvette Cooper with Refugees Welcome T-shirts, and that's why Burnham has never and will never deal with the issue. And by the way, Kevin, even if he could, he can't. Even if he wanted to do it personally, his backbenchers wouldn't let him. And the reason for that is that the 15% of progressives that really call the shots in this country run the country, and the majority can basically get lost, even if the majority happen to be right. So they're building up a huge crisis for the country. Every single boatload costs, on reasonable estimates, the lifetime cost of 500 people coming is £250 million. We're facing fiscal bankruptcy, as I said, and every single boat makes it worse. I don't want to attack reform unnecessarily, but the idea that sending in the Royal Navy will solve it is ridiculous. The only thing that will solve this is to get out of all of the legal architecture which prevents you from having a border. And anyone that turns up, you take to Ascension Island, you keep them there under administered detention for up to 2 years, and you send them back to where they're from. I promise you, the flow would stop.
Yeah, no, remove the incentives and replace them with deterrents, and we could solve this crisis. Last question, actually, William. Do you think Reform are onto something with their announcement today? We're going to cut 50 billion quid off the 350 billion pound a year welfare budget. Do you think that's a vote winner? Do you think people are realising that our budget, our bill for welfare, £350 billion a year and rising to way over £400 billion within 4 years. Do you think people are beginning to realise that is not sustainable? That is economy wrecking. Do you think Reform are onto something with this announcement?
Very much, they are. And any party that's numerate going into the next general election will have to deal with this issue. By then, it'll be even worse. Broadly speaking, welfare payments, entitlement payments until about 1975 were about 6% of GDP, and public investment was about 6% of GDP. That's reservoirs, nuclear power stations, transport, and so on. Public investments collapsed to 1.7%, and welfare spending entitlements have gone up to 10.5% and rising. It is a national crisis. I'm pleased Reform have addressed it. The SDP addressed it in a green paper called The Investment State recently. Our proposed cuts were rather larger than reforms, I have to say, but we propose to taper them over 10 years. I think it's the best way to do it. Housing benefit is something they haven't really mentioned, but that is out of control. You can't build any houses if you spend all your money subsidizing people's rents. But the big items, disability benefit, out of control, and I'm afraid to say the triple lock has to go. So if we want to have any future, Kevin, we have to cut back on these entitlements. That's not theory, it's just maths.
I think you're exactly right. The only thing is I don't have much confidence that Andy Burnham will do that. Listen, William, really good to have you on the show again. Come on again soon. That is the leader of the Social Democratic Party, William Clouston. Point of interest. One of his most devoted lieutenants was Rod Liddle, a big movement part of the Social Democratic Party movement. So, leader there, William Clouston. Now, still with that Jason Arday vigil, and maybe we'll bring you a bit of this if we can get it for you. Well, if you were planning to go down there, maybe you don't want to go down there now because Diane Abbott has just started speaking at the Jason Arday vigil, doubtless continuing this racist media narrative that he was the victim of a racist media witch hunt. He just was not. We should not even pay that argument the time of day. It's insulting to our intelligence. It really is. But there they are, blaming the media. It wasn't the media's fault, was it? Whose fault was it? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to go live to Los Angeles to talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield. Lots to talk about on the Harry and Meghan front. That next. Stay tuned.
£5 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get, and so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to Los Angeles to talk to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure. We're very worried on this side of the Atlantic because the old ginger nuts, the dim Duke, Prince Harry, came over here, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, for this absolutely shambolic, chaotic visit. We didn't know when he was coming. We didn't know whether Meghan and the kids would come. They indeed were secreted into the country, barely noticed. The royals didn't know when he was coming. It was a really, really unbecoming uber mess. It was an absolute mess. He has decided, though, that it was a triumph, that his visit to Britain with Meghan and the kids was an absolute triumph and a brilliant template on which he can base regular future visits. He now says that it was so successful a couple of weeks ago when he came over that he wants to do it every few months. He wants to visit all the time because the last visit was so successful. Well, the truth is, Kinsey, the last visit was an absolute catastrophe. It was a shambles. On what basis would this guy, the dim Duke, Prince Harry, conclude that it was a success, such a success that he wants to come over all the time? People don't want him over here. His family don't want him here. The people of this country don't want him here. He's just in his own world, isn't he, with all this?
Well, I mean, it makes you seriously question his credibility and his honesty, because he spent years telling us that the United Kingdom was a terrible place. It was racist. It was unsafe. He even told a BBC News correspondent that he was afraid someone was going to throw acid in his wife's face. Now he wants to come back every few months. I mean, it's amazing how much more appealing the United Kingdom becomes when Cookie Queens crumbles and nobody in Hollywood wants to work with them anymore. Harry talked to us through Spare, multiple interviews, the Oprah Winfrey interview, and even the Netflix series, about what an inconvenience being a member of the royal family was. He didn't ask to be born a royal. And now all of a sudden he's realizing that it's the only thing that anybody cares about related to him, that it's his only skill set is just being a member of the British royal family. And if the idea is a genuine father-son relationship, I think we would both be like, okay, we can support that. But Harry doesn't. I think that there's an ulterior motive here, and that's the half in, half out role that he has been gunning for since 2020. And you don't get to repair the family relationship and then immediately turn proximity to the monarchy into a commercial asset. And that's unfortunately what I feel like we would be dealing with here with Prince Harry. I don't trust the idea of a reconciliation. I think that ultimately he's looking to commercialize that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that apart from King Charles, I think King Charles's view is if you bring your grandchildren, you know, I'm happy to see you. But I don't think he's that keen on Harry coming back all the time. And the rest of the royal family, you know, frankly, they can't stand Harry. And they despise Meghan even more. So they don't want them here. They don't want the Sussexes here. They don't want ginger nuts coming over every 2 or 3 months. And the people of this country certainly don't want him here. And I think he's deluding himself once again. He has decided to decide that his last useless, chaotic visit was a triumph, so he can do more of these visits, and in his fevered mind, he will persuade all the members of the royal family round to his way of thinking, and they'll forgive him for everything he's been doing since he went to America, hurling grenades across the Atlantic, calling them racist, calling them awful. He doesn't get it. They're not going to forgive him, so that's not going to work. He's never going to get his half in, half out. I'll come over and I'll open a few libraries, then I'll go back to America to make money out of my royal status. He's never going to get that, but he doesn't quite get it. Whatever he wants, he thinks he can get. He's so entitled, he just won't give up on his impossible dream of mending the bridges between the royal family and him. It's not going to happen, is it?
Well, I mean, if we're to take this man at his word, why would he want to? Why would he want to mend fences with this family? I mean, my argument is, what's the truth? Are they terrible people that suffer from unconscious bias, and you've been presented to them as a gift from God to teach them a lesson, or is everything hunky-dory and you just want your dad back? I think that's like there's a conflicting message here, but also to your point earlier, like wildly delusional and entitled and stubborn. On Friday, they sent the Sussex-approved WhatsApp chat, the itinerary, including engagements that featured Meghan and Harry across London. By Saturday, The Sun had reported that Harry was not going to get the security. He was convinced he was going to get automatic armed guards. So Harry releases a statement saying he doesn't know if he's going to bring Meghan and the kids anymore. He also immediately starts fighting with Buckingham Palace publicly, claiming that they reneged on their offer to allow Harry to stay there, which is not true. Harry had a deadline that he failed to meet. By Saturday, he refuses their invitation. And by Saturday afternoon, he's changed his mind. And the king simply says, well, this is no longer an option for you. You need to respect the deadline that my team gave you, and I don't have the resources to put you up anymore. Then Harry loses the court case and slanders the court, calling it the king's court, calling it a whitewash, insinuating that things didn't fall into place in his favor because there were bigger entities working behind the scenes to punish him, and that this is not what justice looks like. And yes, in the end, he got a meeting with a 45-minute tea with King Charles. But if you were covering this trip in real time, it was absolute chaos. And we looked at each other and we said, look at this liability. This is exactly why the palace didn't want Harry staying with them, because he is so undisciplined and he's so unpredictable that why would they want that association with him? So for him to say like the template has approved, or is improved and is working is ridiculous to the people that were actually there and lived it in real time.
Yeah, the Buckingham Palace will be full of trepidation at the idea he's going to come across regularly, because we just don't need that. People don't want it, the royal family don't want it, and if you remember last time, as you were just alluding to, he wouldn't even tell the royal family when he was coming, where he intended to stay. They're in a state of total confusion, so they won't want any more of this at all. Now, let's quickly talk about Cookie Queens, their movie about Girl Scouts, a documentary, which is turning into one of the greatest commercial flops in Hollywood history, bringing in a ludicrously low amount of money. I mean, it is just a massive, massive turkey. It really has failed. Now, this, Kinsey, I know this from my time there in Hollywood, you are as successful as your last film. If your last film was a success, you're successful. If your last film was a flop, you're in trouble. Basically, this was their first ever big screen film release, the first film that they've produced onto the big screens. This is the first ever theatrical release. It was a disaster. What should they do now? And the reason I'm asking you this, I'm reading page 6 in the New York Post, and it's got this royal expert quoted in it called Kinsey Schofield. And you're suggesting, and I think you're right, is they need to wind their neck in and not do anything for a while, because this flop, this mega flop, will taint their reputation in Tinseltown for years to come, won't it?
It will, and I also stress that Meghan's trying to be too many things to too many different people at once. And if you are trying to be a podcast host, a lifestyle guru, a chef, celebrity chef, making loose fruit spread, she drones on and on about her calligraphy. She wants to be the world's best mom. If you try to be too many things at once, you lose your authority across the board. So I think that they need to scale back, disappear, if they want to continue to produce things, because there are rumors that they're producing Meet Me at the Lake, The Wedding Date, No Way Out, and the Polo scripted series with Fake Empire. Then have nothing to do with it. Let the pros take control and let people that actually know what they're doing do what they're good at. And if they're successful, that's the only way I think that Harry and Meghan can redeem themselves in this town. You have to let the success do the work, the talking for you, versus Harry and Meghan constantly telling us what's to come and how great they are when we don't have the analytics to back that up.
Exactly right. And I'm reading that he is now back on the Invictus Games trail, which makes me think, well, get something else in your life, because the Invictus Games don't happen for another year. But he still seems to be beating that drum. But we did learn over the weekend that the money from the Diana Fund that he used to direct to the Sentebale charity that he founded for AIDS victims in Africa, he has now diverted away from Sentebale, so they don't get that money anymore. He sent that to a different charity. So that feud with Sentebale continues apace, Kins.
Well, and we cannot wait for the discovery of that trial, because Sentebale has sued Prince Harry for defamation, and, you know, the countdown is on. I thought that this made Prince Harry look very petty. You know, this is a charity that is supposed to benefit young children that are suffering. And so to then send that money to elephants and announce that 2 of the elephants have been named after Archie and Lily totally reek of the Harry me syndrome, you know, taking money away from children that could use it to, and I love elephants. You and I are huge animal lovers, but then to announce that 2 of the elephants have been named after his children, like, why is it constantly the Harry and Meghan celebration? I just, you know, it's just, it's gross. But Invictus, I think, because if you look back at Harry over the last few years, he does not typically spend over a year promoting the games. It seems like that's just an excuse for him to have one foot in the UK. Is it not? Is that not to you what that reeks of?
Yeah, exactly right. But you know, he needs to well, both of them need to work out what the hell they're going to do with their lives, because they are not going to be allowed to produce anything for a while because of the sheer magnitude of the failure of Cookie Queens, which is a little documentary about Girl Scouts involved in some kind of baking competition to sell cookies, which is an annual tradition there. But, you know, they should have spotted that that is not exactly going to be up there with the Odyssey and Spider-Man when it comes to box office receipts, is it?
No, and then even to release it and when you have competition like Odyssey and Spider-Man, and not release it closer to Girl Scout cookie season, where you might be like, yeah, I'm more likely to watch that. I just bought a box off of a little hustler outside of a, you know, pot dispensary. Yeah, I'm going to watch that. That's an interesting, it all just unfolded unfortunately for the Sussexes. Bad timing, not a very engaging topic. I think her attempt, there were a couple of pursuits here. I think Meghan liked the idea of a movie with the title Queens in it because she thinks she's one, or she thinks she could have been one. I think she loves every opportunity to talk about herself, and that's what she did while promoting this. Well, I was a little Girl Scout. Well, I was a little brownie. And then I also think she's trying to soften her image because she has developed a reputation for being a bully and difficult to collaborate with.
Yeah, indeed. Well, he's going around still banging the Invictus Games drum. Her, as ever, posts seem to have sort of dried up a bit. So what is she doing? What on earth is she up to at the moment? Anything?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I said to Page Six that they didn't publish, and that's that I think that if there's any hope for what's going on, I think it's the Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage. You're going to die, but the fake Empire Polo scripted show, because they know what the heck they're doing. They just got approval for the new Alicia Silverstone Clueless remake. They did the OC, they did Gossip Girl. They just did this new show that premiered #1 on Amazon Prime called like Sterling Point. If I were them, I would put all of my energy into making that scripted polo show happen. Redeem yourself with Netflix, but you're going to have to let Josh Savage and Stephanie Schwartz take the reins, and you are going to have nothing to do with it. Because we criticized Meghan for not promoting her Netflix series. All of them, Heart of Invictus, Polo, the reality show, Live to Lead, etc. But when she did step in and promote Cookie Queens, it did nothing for the product. So I would just say disappear, allow the professionals to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I think you're right. Kinsey, it's fantastic to talk to you as always. We'll talk again very soon. That's Kinsey Schofield, the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. 03444 99 1000. When we come back, I've got some WhatsApp voice notes, I've got some messages, I've got some calls. So we'll talk to you for the rest of the show. Give me a call, still time to get on. 03444 499 1000. What are we going to do about the boats? Do you think that Reform UK are right about our benefits bill? We need to do something about it. Are they onto something, cutting a 50 billion quid from our annual £350 budget, or should they cut more? I think it should cut more than just that, but we need to do something, don't we? 03444 499 1000. And Jason Arday, whose fault was his death? They're down in Trafalgar Square at the moment, the race baiting crowd, all blaming the press. Diane Abbott said it was a vicious campaign by the media. Yeah, who started it? I know, it was Cambridge University, wasn't it? Lord Woolley, he's the chief. He's the head of Homerton College in Cambridge. He said it was a public assassination and a lynching. They couldn't handle a black man to be in a place like that. Cambridge University, the hounds of hell, sought to prove any inaccuracy, to prove he is a bad man. Well, he's a liar, and he shouldn't have been in a place like that. We don't have a problem with black academics. They do exist. There's a fair few of them at Cambridge. This guy was a charlatan and a liar, and they shouldn't have given him that job, should they? 03444 99 1000. Was that a racist witch hunt, or are the race grifters just making up that racist witch hunt? I believe they are. What do you think? Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think this was a racist witch hunt. Maybe you think the media are responsible for the sad death of Jason Arday, but the media didn't put him there. They just picked up on the story. Who gave us the story? It was the academics, the stupid Cambridge academics who were so enthralled to diversity that they overlooked his ludicrous lies, promoted him to a position he wasn't qualified for. He couldn't handle it, and when it all fell to bits, when his castle crumbled, he couldn't take it, he couldn't handle it. It's a very, very sad story, but it's not the media's fault, I say. What do you say? 03444991000. We're going to pay some WhatsApp voice notes when I come back. We're going to talk and I'm going to read some messages. And Peter Cardwell will be in a little while to let you know what he's got lined up for your delectation between 7 and 10 p.m. All of that's still to come, so stay exactly where you are. We'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to go to the phones in just a second. 03444991000. First, a voice note from Scott on welfare.
I have to say, I don't agree with much on your station, but I have to agree with the benefits to a certain extent. I get up every morning, Monday to Friday at 5 o'clock to be at work for 7:30, and I might not get home until 6:30, 7 o'clock that evening. And then I've got neighbours that have 3 or 4 kids on benefits with a brand new disability car, being able to just buy stuff on a whim that I have to plan for and save up to get. I don't agree with reform. I'm sorry. I don't. I think they'll do more damage than good in the long term. But I have to agree with, we need to do something about the benefits. Not all of them, because there is people out there that do deserve them and do need them. But something has to be done about the benefits, because I hate the fact that I get up early in the morning, don't get back, rain, snow, 40 degrees, 30 degrees heat. I have to come to work, otherwise I don't eat, my kids don't eat, my bills don't get paid.
Good voice note from Scott there. Do you agree with him? Do you get up? Are you an alarm clock Brit? Do you get up every morning, crack a dawn, work your backside off to feed your family, keep a roof over your head, over your family's head, maybe go on holiday, and find yourself actually funding benefits claimers? That's where your taxes are going, to pay our massive benefits bill. So are the hard workers of this country being taken for a ride by the people who don't work? Another voice note here from Helen on the migrants.
I've come to the conclusion now that no matter what topic it is that we're discussing, there is just one generic fits-all answer. Everything in this country and probably the world in general is upside down. The people in jail have more rights than the people they committed the crimes against. The people who've contributed nothing towards this country are the first in line for dentistry, medical care, welfare, you name it, they'll get it. The good guys are now the bad guys, and the bad guys are now treated as though they're the good guys. We're living in the upside down.
It's a good one, that, Helen. I totally agree. Something has gone wrong. It is weird the way we prioritise benefits, the way we prioritise our priorities in this country. British citizens come second, don't they? We're too busy making sure that the migrants, people who break into our country illegally, are okay. Absolutely bizarre and weird. Yeah, just to remind you, Diane Abbott says that Jason Arday, this is at the vigil currently going on in Trafalgar Square in central London. This is by Stand Up to Racism. Diane Abbott says that this was a vicious campaign by the media. Start a campaign. It's just not true. Lord Woolley, he's the head of Homerton College in Cambridge. It was a public assassination and a lynching. They couldn't handle a black man to be in a place like that. We didn't have a problem at all. You know, there are plenty of black people, people of colour, who could have got that job with full justification. And we would have praised them, we would have admired them. Instead, Cambridge University decided to give that job to someone who wasn't qualified. He had 3 GCSEs. He did PE or something, you know, and you made him a professor. Gave him a job he wasn't up to, and we know how that story worked out. Yeah, Lord Woolley saying the hounds of hell sought to prove any inaccuracy, to prove he is a bad man. There were loads of inaccuracies. He was a liar and a fantasist. His lies were laughable. That's why they got made so much of. 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg. I starred in a programme that was filmed 30 years before I was born, and so on and so forth. I raised millions for charity. Not that the charities had any knowledge of. Oh, I had these professorships at various universities. No, you didn't. They were just laughable lies. They were funny, and that's why they got reported on a lot. But it was more about the people who chose to believe him than Jason Arday himself. It wasn't the media who caused his problems, it was Cambridge University. We'll take your calls when we come back. Stay where you are.
£1 million donation problem, which kind of triggered this whole by-election. Is that an issue for you?
No. No, I accept that most politicians are in it at the end of the day for the 100,000 a year that they get. And so everybody's in it for money. And if it was for security, and let's face it, look at Anne Widdecombe. She could have done with 5 million, couldn't she, for security? She's dead. And so, no, I don't. I think he was entitled to accept it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Go to the phones in just a second. Few messages you've been kind enough to send in. This is Brian from Hayes. Smash the gangs won't work, Kev, because the UK government, both Tory and Labour, are the biggest migrant smuggling gangs. It's Parliament that collects them in the Channel and then feeds them and houses them. Yeah, well, it's the government that basically does that. Yeah, you're right. Rich says Andy Panny's just campaigning. They are after the weak Lib Dems and the Greens now. That's from Betty. And Rosalind in Hatfield says people are happy to use the media. This is about Jason Arday until they think it turns against them. Then they blame the media. Certain royals tried it too. It went badly for them. Yeah, I blame the media is the most redundant phrase in the English language. I blame the media is nonsense. Let's take a call. Let's go to Georgina in London. Hi, Georgina.
Hello, Kevin. Well, I've got to say, it's not a media witch hunt, and it's not racism. It wouldn't have mattered what colour the person was. It still would have been a huge story. For God's sake, we've even had members of Parliament embellish the CVs to get a good job. We've got, our own Parliament, but it's as clear as crystal that no human being could overcome such horrific health ailments and go on to endure and conquer Olympian endeavours. But people who should have known better indulge his fantasies. Cambridge University are at fault. They should have done the due diligence, and they didn't. Kevin, it's a dangerous precedent when box ticking is more important than the ability to do the job. And the fact that we are supposed to turn a blind eye and say nothing only indulges those who take advantage and lie on the CV.
Well, these race grifters down at Trafalgar Square at the moment, blaming the press. Look, the story here is, Georgina, that Cambridge University sort of inadvertently, in their lust for diversity, for DEI, created this story whereby they closed their ears to more and more of this weird, troubled young fantasists, ludicrous lies. The lies got more and more absurd, more and more colourful, as it were, and people... the university chose to believe, and they chose to believe that he ran 30 marathons in 35 days with a broken leg. They chose to believe he was in 7 Up, a programme that was filmed about 30 years before he was died. They chose to believe all of these lies. The lies were hilariously laughable, and therefore the press was given a story. What are the media supposed to do? Not report it? This is not about the press. This is about Cambridge University. This is about the BBC. It's about charities. It's about the publishing industry. All these denizens of the establishment who chose to believe this vulnerable young liar. That's the story.
Kevin, I am sick of every time there's a problem, the racist card is getting pulled out. Yeah. It's wearing a little bit thin now, This boy did not have the credentials to do the job he was supposed to do. He was there because Cambridge University wanted to do the DEI and the box ticking. He should never have been in that position.